Hey, what's up, guys? You're listening to the It Takes a Village podcast. I'm Ashley, your host. This is where the struggles are real, the callings are heavy, the kids are sticky. We come together because it takes a village, and this is your tribe. Hey guys, thanks for listening into another episode. I'm here with Allie. She is a parent, a mom of my son's friends at our school. My daughter's friends too, I guess. But she is a registered nurse, and she helps people with sleeping, actually babies and infants and family navigate sleeping with an infant and newborns and navigating through that crazy journey and that crazy period of your life. So Allie, thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me.
Let's talk about sleep, and let's talk about why do you think you have so many mamas that are struggling in this aspect of motherhood?
Well, I think a good way to answer that question would be to share with you my story.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had a baby, Willa, my first baby. She's now 6, and she was everything to me. So I quit my job as a hospice nurse to have my baby. And the way that I looked at it was, now that my baby is my job, I am going to spend every second with her. And anytime she cries, I'm going to make it better. I'm going to make it better because that's my job.
Yeah.
So I had her sleeping in one of those cribs that are right next to your bed, attached to your bed. And I did attend to every single little whimper. And I wasn't sleeping. And then to my shock and amazement, I found out I was pregnant again 3 months later.
Oh my gosh.
So I had Posey.
I didn't realize they were so close together.
Yeah, 1 year and 4 days
I
later.
guess that makes sense.
I had Posey, and Willa was nowhere near sleeping.
Yeah.
She was still whimpering. I was still picking her up every time. And then I had Posey. And when Posey came out, Ashley, she screamed so loudly that I knew I was in for something big. And she didn't stop screaming. Yeah. And so with Posey, I had to bounce her on an exercise ball constantly. Otherwise, she would scream. And I didn't see any way to ever get any separation from her. So then there was poor Willa, who I felt guilty that I wasn't with her anymore as much. Yeah. And anyway, neither were sleeping through the night. I was attending to both of them all the time. And somehow I got through that period, but their sleep never got better.
Yeah, that makes it really hard.
Yeah, it was the kind of thing where I would put one down for a nap and then try to sneak out, but they'd cry and then I'd go right back in. And my anxiety would just build up, and I would think, I am never going to get XYZ done unless you go to sleep right now. And they would, of course, sense that. And then it was a vicious cycle. So, but then I was ready to have another baby. So
that sounds insane to me.
He was planned. And so I got pregnant again, and I just started thinking, what am I going to do differently this time? How can I make this work? And by the time Barrett was born, Posey was 20 months old, and Willow was just one year older than that. Neither were sleeping. So I knew I was going to need help. Yeah. So what I did was I called a nurse that does what I do now. Okay. And it was a service called Newborn Nightingales, and I highly recommend them. But they are fantastic, and I truly do recommend them. But it's something that not everybody can afford. Right. So instead of having the full service, what I did was I had one of their nurses come to my house, and she just spent 3 hours with me, and she showed me basically what I needed to be doing. And she, in that 3 hours, empowered me in a way that I didn't see possible. But at the time, I didn't even realize it. I was just listening and taking notes and thinking, okay, I'm going to do this exactly the way that she tells me to do it. And I'm going to do it for maybe a week, and if it doesn't work, I'm going right back to my own way. I was kind of just doing it to satisfy the people in my life who said, do this. Try this. But I didn't believe in it. I just thought, okay, I'm going to do it because she knows, and I'm not sleeping, and I don't know anything at this point. So that night, I did what I now teach moms to do, and my little baby boy slept through the night. Aww. And I had to go and wake him up in the morning, which was the first time I had
You're like, what is this life?
ever done that. I woke him up, and I still tear up every time I tell this story, but I woke him up, and I held him above my head, and tears were in my eyes, and I said, Barrett, you did it. I said, we slept through the night. We slept. And it just changed my whole world. And so what that told me in that instant where I picked Barrett up and I looked him in the eyes like that was, okay, now I know what we need to do to get the whole family sleeping. Yeah. And it was like, it just shifted my paradigm, and it was like, what we need is boundaries. What we need is some guidelines here. And the babies are looking for that, and I need it. And what that offered me was the ability to say, okay, whatever I need to do as a mom today, I can do it because I'll have time for me tonight.
Yeah.
So that's how I got here, and I think that that's the best way to answer your question about it. So
you don't realize how much sleep has an effect on so much of your life, like your functioning, your mood, your anxiety, your
Absolutely.
Everything. Like, so where if we're moms and we're trying to function and we're sleep deprived, like, we can't.
Right. And sleep for infants in particular, sleep and nutrition go hand in hand.
Oh yeah.
So in my anxiety around both sleep and nutrition went hand in hand too, and I didn't realize how linked they were. But every time I was in public in particular, and I would feel my baby start to whimper or start to get upset, before I had this in mind, I thought, oh no, how am I going to get to a spot that's private enough for my baby to cry as loud as they're about to cry, and for me to get my breasts out and feed them? Like, how am I going to, where's my escape plan?
Yeah.
But then once I got this plan in order, it was like, oh yeah, he's starting to whimper because in 5 minutes he's going to eat, and I've got this covered. You know, like it just became, oh yeah, now it's time to eat. So that's why he's doing this. Yeah. And there was just an explanation for everything. I was like, oh yeah, he's squirming a little because he's going to sleep in 10 minutes. And,
yeah. So you felt more in control.
Yeah. I just felt like there was finally a plan, and it came from someone that I trusted. And that was really what I needed, because before that, it was just a series of tricks. It was like, well, my mom told me this trick, my doctor told me this trick, my sister told me this trick, and I would just try them randomly, and I wasn't sleeping well enough to put it into any kind of a system, or to stick with it.
Right. Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get to it, and let's give moms some tips on how they can navigate through this if they are listening and they feel like, that's my life right now, like that's my struggle. What are some main things that they can start implementing today, or that they can start making a change, or things that they need to be aware of?
Okay, so first of all, I think the most important thing is to get in the right frame of mind. And then all the other things follow, and they're really important. But the most important thing is to get in the frame of mind that this is possible. It's possible for my baby to sleep. It's possible for me to even be okay if they don't sleep during nap time. It's possible to put them down, and not with a lot of crying, not with anything that's harsh, but in a very gentle system. It is possible for me to breathe easy, even if my baby isn't sleeping, even if my baby is fussing a little. As long as I know this baby is safe, if I know the baby's safe and has had ample nutrition, is dry and not sick, then everything is truly okay. Deep down in my heart, I know this baby's okay. And that is a huge thing, because you can, when you have a schedule that you believe in that comes from a trusted source, then you can truly believe my baby is okay. He's not hungry right now. He's showing me that he's not hungry with, and I'll give you tips on how to know that everything is okay, but it is possible. And that's the place to start. It's possible. And from there, it's important to start thinking about how boundaries and guidelines are important. So think about how you feel when you know what to expect next, and think about how that affects your baby, and how when the two of you have that peace of mind, how much better that's going to feel than that feeling of being at a restaurant and thinking, oh no, how can I make this work? If he starts screaming right now, where am I going to go? What am I going to do? So that frame of mind is really important. And then another really important key is the idea of safety. So we are going to create a safe environment for your baby to sleep, and all of the tips that I give are based on nursing. So in nursing, of course, the most important thing is health and well-being. So if there's ever any doubt of the baby's safety, if you ever have a feeling in your mom gut that says, I need to check on my baby right now, something's wrong, or if the cry just doesn't sound right, or something is just telling you that something's off, it is always okay to stop the plan for the day and do what you feel you need to do, and just say, okay, we'll get back to it tomorrow. So if something just feels off, that's okay. So that setup is really important. Setting up your attitude, setting up your mind and your heart to know that this can be a peaceful situation and it can be okay. So those are the most important things to get you in the right frame of mind. And then from there, the actual sleep stuff, where I begin usually is to talk about the sleep environment.
Okay.
And for most babies, you can start as young as 2 weeks old with this system.
Okay.
As long as the pediatrician clears you and says the baby's gaining weight in a healthy way and that the baby has no other health concerns, then you can go ahead and get started at 2 weeks. And the system works best if the baby sleeps in their own environment, away from the mom and the dad, but particularly the mom because of the smells and the hormonal connection there. Babies can smell moms from so very far away.
Really?
You would not believe it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been
We
told,
always joke about that, like, because Dalton will hold, our newest kiddo, and I'll be, like, far away, and he's like, but he'll get closer, and then the baby will kind of, like, turn his head and, like, look like he wants to eat, and my husband's always like, he can smell you, and we like laugh about it, but he probably can.
I've been told, and I'm not a scientist, but I've been told that babies can smell through like one wall.
That's insane.
So it is insane, but you probably believe it based on your own knowledge.
Yeah.
And it should be flattering to any parent when a baby does get fussy around the parent, because that means they can let it out. Whatever anxiety they're feeling, they feel safe with you. And so
that's a neat way to think about that.
Yeah, it's a good way to think about it. Like if one sweet dad had tears in his eyes, and he hadn't slept, granted, but I was working with their family, actually spending the nights at their house, and this one dad held his baby, and the baby was crying in the morning after a great night of the baby sleeping through the night. But the dad had tears in his eyes when he looked at me, and he said, he always cries in my arms. And he said, that's good. That's a good thing. Yeah. That means he trusts you and he's letting it out. And he got more tearful then and gave me a hug. So,
of course.
Yeah, it's a good thing if they feel like they can let it out with you. And that's a good thing to remember, is if they are expressing themselves, it's
that's
not
exactly
always
what it is.
It's not always a negative. It could just be that they're getting their feelings out, they're getting their calories out. So anyway, like I was saying, it's important to give the baby their own space. And this can be done without doing it that way, but it's really my best advice. And if you want it to work quickly and with as little anxiety on both sides, it's best to have some separation.
Okay.
So what that means is a dark room, as dark as you can possibly get it, even if you need to do like sheets on the windows or blackout shades, it's worth it.
Okay.
So as dark as possible. Baby swaddled in a crib or bassinet. Most important thing is that it's a safe environment, not like a rock and play or something like that. It needs to be a flat, safe environment like a crib. And I do a swaddle, a good tight swaddle with arms and legs down. And the reason for that is babies really need to have their arms and legs pinned down because they have that startle reflex. Yeah. And immediately when a baby startles, they're gonna cry. Yeah. And they just can't get themselves back to sleep yet. They're just too young for that. So we need to give them the best chance to stay asleep, and that's by keeping their arms in tight. Yeah. And the one that I recommend, the best swaddle, is the Miracle blanket.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've seen those.
That's the one I highly recommend. But if you have another one that works and it keeps their arms down, that's great. But I can't stress enough the importance of arms down. Yeah. So dark environment, in a crib, swaddled, and white noise is a good thing to have. Okay. It's very important. I mean, you could do it without it, of course, but I find it's really important and a good. What these things do: the dark room, the crib, the swaddle, the white noise, and doing it so routinely is what it becomes. Independent sleep cues, and independent is the key word there, because so many moms and babies like myself get into this thing where it can only work if mom's doing it. It can only work if we sing this song or if we rock this way. But all these things that I stress are independent, and anybody can do it as long as they have the room, as long as they have the dark, they have the swaddle. Yeah. You know, it can work. And that really gives the primary caregiver the freedom to say, I can go and work out. I can go to a concert with my friends.
Things they need to do. Yeah.
It gives you that freedom. Even if you don't choose to use it, you have that feeling that I am free. And you need it.
Yeah.
You need it. So I've said dark room, away from mom.
Yeah.
Crib, swaddle, white noise, and routine is important.
Okay.
So, those are really important things. And then along with that, of course, the schedule, the eating schedule and the sleeping schedule. And the way that you do it then, of course, is important too. So you not only have the dark room, but you also have some guidelines about how you do it. So you would, for instance, a lot of the time feedings should occur right before nap time or bedtime. So what you would do is you would have lights on during feeding. You keep the baby awake and stimulated during feeding. And you could be breastfeeding or bottle feeding. But my tip to avoid reflux, even if it isn't an issue, but to avoid it becoming an issue, is to feed the baby upright if possible. As it's harder with breastfeeding, but upright is good, especially with bottle feeding. And if you're bottle feeding, try to keep the bottle parallel with the floor, if that makes sense. Yeah. And so you support the baby's head with your one hand. I do it with my non-dominant hand. I support the baby's head, and then I feed parallel to the floor. And then what that does is it allows the baby to control the flow more.
To go allow the milk to go in and out.
Yeah, and then I don't break suction to burp very often. What I do, in fact, is I feed all the way until the baby acts done. Then I burp, and then I actually swaddle.
Oh, okay.
So I keep them awake. So I feed to where they act done for the first time.
Yeah.
Burp, then swaddle. Then I offer the rest of the bottle or the breast. And then I keep them awake. They're awake. That's the most important thing. If you're hearing me say awake a lot, they're awake when you put them in the crib. They can be sleepy, but they have to be awake. And what that does is, this works even for older babies and toddlers. Like, I can't stress enough, it's important that babies go to bed awake. And that is because when they are put in bed asleep and they wake up alone, that's much more stressful, and I find that they have that scared kind of cry when they wake up. Whereas if they wake up in the same environment where they went to sleep, everything is just the way it was when they went to sleep, and nothing is different. They haven't been left, they haven't been abandoned. It's just the same exact feeling as when they were put down.
Because it's like, this is just where I wake up.
Yeah, it's like if you fall asleep in the car and your parent carries you inside, then you might say, why am I not in the car?
Right, yeah.
So it's that feeling of security.
Yeah. You said that the whole, like, you feed them and then you burp them, the swaddle. You said that when, I don't know where you mentioned that at. Maybe we were talking in passing or you posted it somewhere, but then I've been doing that with my little guy, and he's a month old or a little bit over a month old. And so he's doing that, and he's doing great doing that.
Good.
So I'm like, yes.
Good. I'm glad to know it.
So, yeah, because especially, like, for me, when I'm going back to work, it's like, well, I need to know that he can put himself to sleep, that it's not going to be, like, this emotional, like, breakdown for him when I'm not in the room with him to nurse him to sleep.
Absolutely.
So I was like, this works, okay.
Yeah, so you get to that point where you're done feeding, and what you do is you swaddle them up. You have swaddled them up. You finish the feeding, and then you do your special song that you do with them, or you give them a kiss, whatever your routine is. Try to keep it as similar as possible every night. Then you put him down and you walk out of the room.
Yeah.
You just walk out and you close the door. And if he cries, maybe time him for a little while and see if it's a really hard cry and it sounds like he's just not having it, then maybe time him for, I'd say start with 2 minutes, because it's hard to do it first. Yeah. So start with 2 minutes, and if it just doesn't stop, then maybe he didn't get enough to eat. Or maybe he has another burp. So when you're first putting a baby to bed for the night, if he doesn't go right to sleep, then it's okay to have some intervention there. Yeah. So you could say, maybe he didn't eat enough. Try to feed him a little more, burp him a little more. But then when you don't drag it out, and you don't read another book or something like that. You just really just stick to maybe feeding or burping, and that's it. Then you walk out again. And babies usually do go to sleep really well in that way. So then let's say they do go to sleep. So then you leave them and you do your thing, and you keep the monitor with you. And if they should wake, which babies often do, especially at first, you turn a timer on. Okay. So if you have a newborn and they're 2 weeks old, the way that this would work is you have a timer on, and you would set your timer for 2 minutes. And if that baby is like whimpering, you don't set the timer. If they're just whimpering, if you hear a good cry that's like that sustained crying, then you start the timer.
Okay.
And if they keep that sustained cry for a full 2 minutes, then you would go in and you would soothe. And soothing in this case means that you don't turn on the light. You stay for a maximum of 1 minute in the room. You don't pick him up. You just pat his tummy or rub his chest. You'll find what works for your baby. I find that with a lot of babies, cupping the back of their heads and like kissing their forehead works really well, or whispering something sweet to them. But just that feeling of cupping their head seems to work. And one little trick that I look for is there's this like exhale that you hear, this beautiful, wonderful, like that's it. That's what I need. And then you walk out of the room. And if the baby stops crying, you walk out of the room really quickly.
Yeah.
You don't stay, because then they might cry again.
Yeah.
So if they stop, you leave. If they're still crying after a minute, you leave, which is hard. That's the hardest part, is if they're still crying and you leave. But then you time them for only 3 minutes the next time. So you walk out of the room, whether they're crying or not crying, you walk out at 1 minute. Let's say that they're not crying. So you walk out of the room and then they shift or something and they start crying again. You would time for 3 minutes.
Okay.
So, and again, it's a sustained cry. If they stop in the middle and they look around, let's say like a good 5 seconds, and not like a quick 5, but like a good long 5, then you would stop the timer and you would restart it for another 3 minutes. And what this does is, if you just keep the timer going, even though they're stopping intermittently, it doesn't recognize the fact that they have stopped. Like maybe they're thinking about this time will be the time that they self-soothe. You never know. So you give them a chance. And if they pick it back up, then you pick it back up too, and you give them the 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say they cried for 2 minutes, then they've cried for a solid 3, then you go in and you soothe them again. Same exact process. You walk out of the room, they cry again, then you set it for 4 minutes.
Okay.
And after 4 minutes, that's the final like crying stint that you have to time for. But you will still go in and soothe them. Give them one more chance. See if it works. Walk out. If they start crying again, you don't time them. You just go right
back in.
You go back in. And you assume that if a baby has cried for 2 minutes, then 3 minutes, then 4 minutes, you assume they're hungry. Like they've shown you, they've done their work, and they're hungry. Because hungry babies don't go back to sleep.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe if you're letting them cry for an hour and a half or something, they just give up. But after 2 minutes, and then soothing 3 minutes, then soothing 4 minutes, you can say, okay, this baby's hungry. He's done great work. And and that's another thing I want to encourage is view it as great work. Like you're doing great work. He's doing great work. Together, you're working on this.
Yeah. It's like training for a marathon.
It's not something cruel. It's not something awful. It's working together. And it's for the health and well-being of both everybody, mom, baby, dad, whoever's doing it. It's for all of your well-being. Because you're going to be the person you want to be when you're rested. Yeah. So, okay. So you have done the 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, then you feed. Feeding then would be in a dim environment, like you'd keep it as quiet as possible, but baby has to stay awake. That's the key. And then the same thing as when you're putting them to bed, you would unswaddle them for that feeding. Probably change their diaper. That's a good time to do it to get them awake. And then feed till you think they're done, re-swaddle, feed some more, and then put them down. Same system.
Got it.
So, and that goes for, we're basically been talking about nighttime sleep, but the same stuff applies for naps.
Okay. That's good. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
So, okay, that is awesome. That's awesome steps for parents to take at nighttime. But I have a lot of questions from moms who have a little bit older, like 1-year-olds, 13-month-olds. So is there such a thing as like us, when we do the things that are wrong, like we haven't been implementing any of these steps, can it mess up later on? Like, can it mess us up later on to where like there's no turning back, or it makes it harder, or can we still use these tips when they're...
I think there's, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, but I don't think there should ever be a time where we say you can't turn back. Because what this is, it's not it's not a bag of tricks. It's a system. And you know Montessori, because our kids both go to the same school. It's kind of the same empowerment strategy. It's like what a baby can do for themselves. You let them do, because you're not serving them if you're doing something for them that they can do. So if they can get themselves to sleep, then let's let them. You know? So no, there's not a point where it can't turn back. And what I'm hoping the listeners are hearing is that this is a system. It's not just tricks. So you can extrapolate this to any age of child. What it's saying is, I am going to tell you what I expect. It is going to be safe. You can count on it. You can trust me. It will happen this way every day. So you don't need to push. You don't need to see what's going to happen, because you know every day this is what's going to happen. You can count on me. I'm your mama, and it's going to be the same every day.
It just looks a little bit different when they get older. Whether you can verbalize that or...
So, like, this works. The system I just told you is obviously easier with a little baby. I mean... Because that's the easiest for them to catch on. It can be 2 months, 3 months. It gets harder when they can be mobile. And they can't be swaddled beyond the point where they can roll over back to tummy. So that's an important thing I should tell listeners too, is we say don't swaddle if they can roll over back to tummy, or if they reach 18 weeks, whichever comes first. That's when you would stop the swaddle. And another really important thing about swaddle that I should say is, if the baby breaks out of the swaddle at any point in the night and you can see it on the monitor, don't time them. Just go in and re-swaddle. Like, don't make them cry, because a baby won't go back to sleep if they've broken out of their swaddle. So just re-swaddle them and then start.
And they're magicians. They can get out of that swaddle.
They can. So, okay, so the way that you extrapolate this to older kids is you kind of apply the same principles. It's like, these are boundaries, these are guidelines. So you think about age appropriateness. So for like a 1-year-old baby, they can't be swaddled, but they can be put in their bed awake. Absolutely. And they should not get feedings at night, because kids that old just don't need it. And you will find, if you try this, I'll say, I won't say perfect, because I can't say what's going on in people's homes, but with the work that I have done, it has always been shown that the babies do self-soothe, and they stop needing feedings at night so early on. And I won't give like a specific time frame, but if you start this and you stick to it, it will work faster than you could ever imagine. And you'll be so amazed by your baby. You will be so pumped and so proud. But anyway, so the same goes for older kids. So you put them to bed awake. You make sure you're not giving in the night to things that they don't need. Even if they have had a feeding every night for their whole lives, if they're thriving, they don't need to eat it. So the same principles apply. And then if they're a little bit older, and they can listen to reason, I'll tell you what happened with my kids is, like I said, I held Barrett up above my head, and I realized, this is amazing. This is a life change right here. So it shifted my whole paradigm of parenting. Not just of Barrett, the infant, but of Willa and Posey, the toddlers, because they were sharing a room, and I was putting them to bed, and I was staying with them until both were asleep, and I couldn't sneak out, and I was just growing in anxiety and resentment for my husband's not doing it, or he is doing it and I'm not doing it, but problems were happening in our household because of it. So what I did that very day that I picked Barrett up in that way and cried those happy tears was I decided that at lunchtime, far from bedtime, you don't want to talk about things that will happen at bedtime with a toddler. You don't want to have that talk at bedtime. Because it seems like it's upon them, and there's no control, and it's ominous. So you have the conversation well ahead of time before you expect the change to happen. So what I did was, at lunchtime, I said, hey girls, things are going to be different at bedtime tonight. This is what we're going to do. And for my household, this is what it sounded like. We're going to do our bath. We're going to do our books. Everything's going to be basically the same. But when it's time to lay down, I'm going to set my timer for 3 minutes. And we are going to snuggle, we're going to sing, whatever you choose to do in those 3 minutes. And it's in bed, in the dark.
So there's no lights on.
In that 3 minutes, you choose what we do. But when you hear my timer, that's the time where I'm going to give you one more hug, one more kiss, and I'm going to walk out of the room. And when I walk out of the room, I expect you to be quiet for 5 minutes. That means no asking me for anything, no coming out of your room.
Okay.
Like, they don't have...
That answers my next question.
They can talk to each other.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be silent. They don't have to be perfect. They shouldn't
Right.
be playing. But,
Right.
you know, they don't have to be perfect. I don't keep toys in the room for that reason, but not everybody has that option.
Right.
So we keep toys in a different place so that bed is bed.
Right.
But anyway, that's not an option for everybody. So the guidelines are they can't come out of their room and they can't ask, well, they can ask all they want for something, but then the timer starts over. So,
okay.
So at first they're going to push. They're going to ask for things. They're going to come out of the room.
see if you're for real or not, like if this is a real
and
deal.
I'm going to say, well, look, I'm going to reset my timer, and if you can be in there for 5 minutes, then I'll come check on you. And then when I do, if the request is reasonable, like another hug or a cup of water or something, then I'll give it to them. But then I leave the room again after 1 minute. I don't drag it out. They don't get to play me here. So then I go out of the room, and I try to stay near the room so they can hear me. Like, their room was by the kitchen, so they could hear me rattling around in the kitchen and doing dishes, and they felt secure. So after the 5 minutes, and after I've checked on them and I've walked out of the room again, the deal then is 30 minutes of quiet, no requests, but in 30 minutes they're always asleep.
They're asleep, yeah.
So if they're truly being quiet and following the rules, then they're
gonna pass out.
they're gonna be asleep. And after just a few nights, they were asleep before 5 minutes, but they wanted that 5-minute check for a while.
Yeah. Because it was new and they wanted to see what this was about.
Right.
Yeah.
And it doesn't just apply to sleep. So if you think about that system of telling them what to expect and following through and not giving into things that you're not willing to. So you decide, like, what's going to be okay. It's not going to be okay if they want to do another puzzle after 5 minutes.
Right.
It's not going to be okay if they want another book. But it's going to be okay if they want a hug. They could have 1 billion hugs from me.
Okay.
You know, that's okay. You have to decide for you what the boundaries are. And then you have to let them know what to expect. And that goes the same for what you expect as restaurant behavior or, you know, when adults are talking. You just have to let kids know what you're looking for and what you're expecting. And most of the time they're going to meet your expectations because they want to.
Yeah. That's like, I think I've mentioned on here before, it's like when you tell your kiddo to like clean their room, your expectation of a clean room is might be completely different of theirs. And so when they're hearing you say clean, they're doing what they think that is. And then when you go in there and you see it and you're like, what are you doing? You haven't cleaned anything. And they're like, but yeah, I have. Like, you know, so you have to like communicate in some way what your like set that up to where everybody succeeds in that moment. And
set them up for success.
Yeah. That's good. Okay, so I think these are awesome. What do you do if your toddler has no problem like going to sleep but staying asleep? I guess the same rules would apply. You would just implement. Okay.
You would probably, you do everything you can do to set them up for success. Like for a toddler, you want a dark room too. Maybe white noise would work for them. Maybe a lot of the same principles would work for them. But if they get up and they come to your room, which happens in my household, well, we have a talk about it during the daytime. Like, I saw that you came to my room. I saw that you expected to maybe get in my bed or something that's not okay with me. And I just wanted to talk to you about that because these are the rules of our house. In our house, we sleep in our own beds. And, you know, it's up to your rules. But maybe you would say when the sun comes up, it's fine to come to my bed. Or you can always come to my bed if you need something, but you won't be getting in it. You'll be sleeping in your bed. So, but whatever it is, it's important to talk to them about it. And in my opinion, it's important to talk to them about it in daylight.
Yeah, I think that's good. Yeah, because there's a lot of mamas that I've heard from, you know, my audience and whatnot that they're struggling because, you know, they have a kiddo in the bed, but then that interrupts your intimacy. You're like, you know, they're kicking you in the face, and so you're getting, again, horrible sleep. And so, I mean, even though they're going to sleep, you're not getting great sleep because they're still interrupting it. And so, yeah, that's good too. These are awesome tips.
Well, good. I'm glad you think so. I think so too. It's 100% changed my life. I feel now that in not just sleep situations, but in situations in general, I don't have growing anxiety with my kids. I am okay to be wherever I am with them because I believe that I've set them up to know that when I say something that I mean it. And they're not perfect and there will be fits, but then we have a system for fits. It's like you're never going to get what you want if you're doing this. This is not the way that we get things. It's not the way we get our needs met.
Right.
So we will walk away from the situation. You have to be okay walking away. But it's just a great feeling to know that wherever I am, whatever I'm doing, I can manage this.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing from what I'm hearing you say, and it's more like a mindset thing of knowing that and having that secure feeling, and moms being, I don't know, having that empowerment that, like, I fed my kids, whether it's I nursed them, I just took them out to lunch, you know, whatever, like, I know their bellies are full, they're not sick, they're in a safe place, whether it's, you know, if they're about to throw a fit on the floor, like, they're not going to hurt anything, they're not going to hurt themselves, they're in the crib, to where you can apply that in all areas of, like, I've done all the things, they're okay, if they cry, it's okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, you think about that you have set them up. You are a good mama. You are a good papa.
Yeah.
You've set them up in a safe environment. You've fed them all day long, the appropriate amount at the appropriate time, and now you know they're okay.
Yeah.
You know they're okay during nap time because they don't need to eat during nap time. They don't need anything. Like, they just need to rest. And if they're not sleeping, you can't control it. You can't make anybody sleep. So if they're in the safe environment and they're not just screaming bloody murder, then they're okay. And even if they are crying, they're still okay, but you might want to check on them when your mom gut tells you to. And that, you know, there is a system for it. There's the 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, and then that graduates as well. I should mention that. Okay, so after a week of 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, you go 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes.
Okay.
And it goes up from there. It never goes past 10 minutes.
Okay.
And I find that you never need to get anywhere close to that. So, if you...
by then they're already getting into the rhythm.
They get it.
Yeah.
They get it. You'll be amazed. They will just... They'll cry maybe a minute, then they'll look around, and then they'll stop.
Be like, well, I'm all right.
Yeah. Nothing extraordinary is happening.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to go back to sleep. So, yes, you do graduate it, but you never go to any extraordinary amount of time.
Okay.
And then eventually, this is very important, moms and dads, eventually you will not be tied to that monitor like that anymore. Because you will know after a few nights, I would say after, let's say a week, to make everybody really comfortable, a week of your baby not eating in the middle of the night, that baby's not going to go back to needing to eat in the middle of the night. They might increase intake during the day, but a baby who can make it a week can make it. It's going to be okay from then on.
Yeah.
And if it's not like you turn the monitor off completely, but this is what I do. At the point where you believe your baby sleeps through the night and doesn't need to eat, and you trust it and you're confident in that, then what you do is you keep the monitor on to a level where you can hear it when your baby starts to cry. When the baby starts to cry, you turn the monitor all the way down and you set a timer for what you're comfortable with. But a good amount of time. I'd say 10 minutes. If it's an older baby, maybe 15 minutes.
Right.
Whatever you're comfortable with. But turn the monitor off so you go back to sleep during that time and you're not vigilantly listening and feeling
stressing out about it. Yeah.
Go back to sleep, and when your timer goes off, turn the monitor back up, and 9 times out of 10 that baby's going to be back asleep with no intervention at all.
And that's with like a safe cry, like not when they're like screaming bloody murder.
If you're, it always goes that if your mom gut tells you they're crying because something's wrong, go. I mean, just no system is more important than that.
Yeah.
But on a normal night where it's just, I mean, babies cry because they're bored. They really do. It's not just because they need love. It's they cry
You're not
for
doing something wrong. Yeah.
Various reasons. It could be, and it most oftentimes is that they just need to get their calories out. So. If something tells you they need more, then, like I said, no system is more important than your mom instinct. So go with it. But if you think this is working, then my advice is turn that monitor off for 10 minutes, turn it back on, listen. If the baby's asleep, great. If the baby's still crying, then listen. Like, don't just go right in, but listen. Is it ramping up? If it's ramping up, then go.
Right.
But if it sounds like one of those cries where he might just go back to sleep on his own, then give him a chance.
That little whimper sound,
give him a chance because he's already doing great.
Yeah.
Give him a chance at full success and getting back to sleep. And just know, every time you hear that baby cry, it doesn't mean they're not safe. Like if something tells you they are unsafe, then address it.
Yeah.
But just remember, it doesn't mean that something terrible is happening.
Right. Oh, this is so good. I feel empowered.
Good.
So, okay, well, I think this is awesome. I think I want to end there because you've shared so many good tips for us. You are accessible to people who are local. I don't know if you're accessible to people via the phone. Do you do that, or?
Yes, okay. I can help over the phone. Absolutely. I can help from a distance. I could set up Skype with you. I could go to your home. Whatever level you need, shy of spending the night in your home, because I'm no longer doing that, but I highly recommend Newborn Nightingales if you're looking for something like that.
Okay.
But if you're just looking for support or the specific schedules, or for me to go over all of this in your home with you, even if you're pregnant and just wondering how this is going to be, that is a great time to start thinking about all of this. So, and I am accessible by email. My email is Mehlmann, MEHLMANN .ali, that's ALI, @gmail.com. So that's Mehlmann, MEHLMANN .ali @gmail.com. So I'm accessible that way.
Okay.
And from there we could talk about whatever your specific needs are. And I can tailor things to toddlers. We can talk about bigger kids. There's not so much of a system there, so it's not as specific, but I could just support you.
Yeah, it's just like making corrections. And
I could support you in if you're just beginning with boundaries, I could support that.
I think that's like the biggest thing is we know we can do it, and sometimes we know what we can do. We just need a cheerleader to be like, you're doing great, keep going, try again tomorrow. And that's like the majority of it. Yeah.
Confidence is by far the biggest piece of this.
Yeah. Of trusting and knowing that you've got it and believing that. What an awesome episode, you guys. Allie wanted me to make sure you had this reference, and it is a book that we forgot to mention during the episode. It's called Moms on Call, and it very much aligns with everything that Allie teaches. So if you want to check that out, you can find that in most bookstores. You guys, I don't normally come back on after an interview has been done, and I don't continue to further talk about the guests that I've just had on after said interview. But I feel like I need to this time, because this episode I did was with Allie Mehlmann, and it was in person. We sat side by side, and I could completely see her heart in this whole conversation. Just her passion for it, that it's not a career first, it's a passion first. It's something that she, to her bone, in her core, is not only really just gifted in doing, but her heart is completely in this and helping mamas and families. And so if you're listening to this episode and you have any more questions, if you just need to reach out to her and tell her thank you, or if you need to reach out to her for support, by all means, I really encourage you to do that, because you guys, if you want anybody on your sidelines, it's this woman, hands down. And also, I know all my listeners are mostly or majorly DFW locals, and she is a DFW local, guys. So if you need her help, she's here in our area. Please call on her. Don't struggle any further. Don't feel lost or with a lack of control, or let your anxiety consume you in this area of motherhood, because it totally doesn't have to. And I promise you, Allie is your person. Anyways, I hope you guys have an awesome rest of your week. Thank you for listening in. Hope you subscribe. Make sure you share this with a mama who needs to hear it, because there's some awesome tips in here. I don't know that I've ever had an episode with so much guidance and actionable tips for you to take and implement right now. So make sure you share it, subscribe, and I will catch you guys next time.